For the second part of this objective, we're looking at solving quadratics by using what we call the square root property. If you think back to the solving by factoring, you don't have to think back, I've still got it right here. When we didn't have a constant term, when we were missing our constant term, we could factor out the x, and that made life a little bit easier. Here, we're going to be missing our middle term. We're missing our x term. We've got our x squared term and our constant term, but no x term in the middle. And that makes life a little bit easier than having to factor. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to move the constant term over to the other side. So we can add 12 to both sides and get 4x squared equals 12. Then I can divide by the 4x. Divide by 4, and that will give us 12 divided by 4 is 3. And then we can take the square root of both sides. So we'll get x is equal to the square root of 3. But when we do this as part of solving an equation, we have to remember that 3 actually has two square roots, the positive one and the negative one. Right? Just like 9 has two square roots, because 3 times 3 is 9 and negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, we have to account for both of those. So you got to remember to include that plus or minus. Almost the same thing here. This one turns out a little differently. We use the same process though. 4x squared equals negative 12. Divide both sides by 4, we get x squared is negative 3. And then we can do the square root of both sides, and that's going to give us x equals positive or negative. We can't reduce the square root of 3, but we do have to deal with that negative. So the square root of negative is I. I didn't say it that way before. I said when you're taking the square root of a negative, you just have to pop the I on there. The way I like to think of it is the square root of that negative sign is I. Okay, couple more. Here we've got half the work done for us already. 21's over on the other side, so we just divide by 3. Get x squared is equal to 7. Square root both sides, and that'll give us x is positive or negative square root of 7. X, not x squared. And here, we'd subtract 10 from both sides, divide both sides by 5, negative 2, and then when we square root both sides, we have to remember the couple things. First, the positive or negative. The square root of negative is I, and the square root of 2 stays the square root of 2. Do not let any of my professors find out that I just told you that the square root of a negative sign is I. They would hate me for that. But it works as a way to think about it.